Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Rough, Darren Jackson and Hugh MacDonald are here with me. It is Tuesday, and as ever you think to yourself, is there anything really happening in Scottish football? Well, yet again, they just keep on giving, week in, week out, day in, day out. This time, it's Bolly Bolingoli who is the centre of our thoughts. Bolly Bolingoli, at this moment, is in self-isolation for 7 days. And let me take you through the chain of events here since I visited Lennoxtown today and spoke with the Celtic manager, Neil Lennon. Quite simply, Bolly Bolingoli was told with the players after the Hamilton game they could have a couple of days off and they were not to leave the country under any circumstances. Bolly Bolingoli flew out to Spain on the Monday and came back in on the Tuesday. He did not inform Celtic of it, and when they went to Rugby Park to play their game, Bolingoli played in that match in the last 10 minutes. It then surfaced that he had actually left the country and did not come back and go into quarantine or self-isolation and did not inform the club. He was caught out, basically, because the story came to the light of Celtic Football Club. It was gathering pace, and somebody had obviously spotted him. So from there, he's now got 7 days to determine whether he has a future or not. The First Minister has got involved in this. She's basically been speaking today. Celtic's game against Aberdeen is off. St Mirren against Celtic, off. Accies against Aberdeen, off. So, in the space of the last 4 days, we've had 8 Aberdeen players all hauled up for basically going into a pub in Aberdeen. And we have Bolingoli adding to that, which prompted the First Minister to say, yellow card now. Next time it happens with anyone in Scottish football, red card, lockdown. And we will not be able to continue the games. The Trust, according to Jason Leach, the Chief Medical Officer of the government and players, is not 100%. And he praised the efforts of all clubs in the Scottish Premiership for trying to get football back behind closed doors, albeit. But this trust with the players is not at 100%. So we're on a final warning. We're hanging by a shaky peg. Hugh MacDonald, have you ever witnessed anything like it?
Well, there's never been anything like it, but is it just the more cynical of us who believed that this wouldn't run smoothly? Even, there was little hiccups in Germany, but the hiccups in Germany were to do with a guy going into the wrong dressing room and a guy, Jadon Sancho, going for a haircut. There was hiccups in England with guys, shall we say, not properly socially distancing. I think that's the best thing we can say for this time of the day. But this is on a different level altogether. It really is. It's astonishing stuff, even for Scottish football. The 8 guys think it's going to be okay to go in the middle of a coronavirus infected city and have a night out. The one guy who has explicitly been told not to leave the city jumps on a flight to Spain for a day, and there must be another story in that, Peter, believe me, and comes back in a day. So the whole thing is what the old cliche about this thing being in unprecedented times, but Scottish football and its capacity to wound itself has really risen to the occasion.
Yeah, we'll hear from Neil Lennon very, very shortly and what he had to say at that press conference. But, Roughie, you only have to look at the evidence. I mean, Hugh just alluded there to maybe another aspect to this story, which Neil Lennon obviously wasn't aware of. There was a suggestion in the press conference, and I'm telling you right now, it's just a suggestion that he'd gone over there to speak to an agent or talk about possible signing talks with someone, which, as you know, you can do from home anyway. So I'm going to dismiss that at the moment. The Celtic manager certainly said if that were the case, he would be in for a double punishment. In my mind, Roughie, I think Bolly Bolingoli's career at Celtic is over. 7 days from now, when he comes out of isolation, I think the club will view it as gross misconduct, and I think his Celtic career is at an end. The only hint I've got of forming that opinion, Roughie, is Neil Lennon said today when asked, Do you think he will be able to go back into the dressing room and be accepted and forgiven by his teammates? And the manager, who was trying as much as he possibly can not to make any kind of a statement on the player's future, said, I think it would be very difficult for him to go back into the dressing room, Roughie.
It's a difficult one for him. You know, obviously the players all know what the expectations are this year and what's on the line this year. And now he's put his club on a backward foot. Obviously other teams now will be getting games to get points to go ahead of Celtic. It could be 8 or 10, which I don't think Celtic would have wanted. You know, they've got a European Cup tie coming up with no warm-up before it, if that goes ahead. So, yeah, as far as Celtic's football club, and I listened to the Neil Lennon interview there, I think it's embarrassment more than anything else. It's embarrassment that he's the manager of such a big club that this has fallen on, and it's an embarrassment for Celtic Football Club that this player has brought this on the club. So I agree with you. I don't think he'll play again. They'll have to get some kind of money for him because they laid out money for him. So, yeah, it's a sore one to take, you know, for a size of a club like Celtic, for this to happen. And I just got the embarrassment. When I listened to Neil Lennon, I think he was just totally embarrassed that the player had let the whole club down, and personally him.
Well, I can understand it. He was absolutely livid when he came in to talk about it, Darren. Now, there's a triple whammy here for me. You know, they're well aware of the rules. They are well aware of the countries that are suddenly on this list from Great Britain that you have to go into quarantine if you go there and you return. The triple whammy is he goes out to Spain, which is first of all breaking the rules. He then comes back from Spain, which is second of all breaking the rules. To think he has the audacity not to inform the club of this, and then to throw all this into the mix and then actually go on to the park to play for Celtic and deceive not only his teammates, but put the Kilmarnock players and all the staff and all the people at risk in Rugby Park is surely gross misconduct, Dan.
Yeah, Peter, it's beyond belief. I saw Neil's interview and you could tell how angry he is. And I agree with Roughie, yes, embarrassment, but no, embarrassment that a player that is being told, I mean, do they think they're beyond just to do anything they want, Peter? I mean, I bring myself in, and they say footballers are only the brightest bulb in the box. But this is common sense. This is a world pandemic that we're talking about. It's no just a fun and games that we're going on about. It's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous what he's done. Now, Peter, people will be putting two and two together that he's going over to be, and I actually can't see any other reason why he's going to Spain for a day to come back. I think there actually could be something in that he knows he's not going to play. I mean, I would think the Celtic fans have kind of gone with him already, but I would think that the Celtic fans has finished them. But and as I say, I don't know. Everyone's only speculating, but I can see a little bit in that he's maybe going over to be an agent to tell him that there's a club involved and this is involved. Because why else would you go to Spain for one day? And I don't know how many hours he would be there. There's nothing else you can go like. Was he just going for a day to party and have a night out, or that there's bound to be photos? Celtic players are recognised everywhere in the world, Peter. Do you know what I mean? Like, you think you can go through an airport, you're a Celtic player, you think you can go through an airport and not get recognised. And so, as I say, I don't know the ins and outs, and I'm not accusing anyone of meeting play, but I just think that there must be a little bit of truth in that.
Yeah, well, as I can say, it's speculation that Neil Lennon only dismissed it because he said, I don't know if that's the case. If that were the case, he said, he'd be in even more trouble if it was humanly possible. But
I would say, Peter, I would say it would be an agent, it wouldn't be a club, because as we said, it's a world pandemic. A club's not going to be stupid enough to fly someone in from another country and put them back. I don't think a club is going to be that stupid.
No, but again, you know, I want to try and get a sense of balance on it before stories like this can just grow arms and legs and descend into a form of hysteria, Hugh. I mean, at the end of the day, Darren's right. And, some players are indeed very stupid, naive, almost think they are bomb-proof. They think that they're invisible. They think they've got huge amount of money in their accounts, and they think, I can do anything I want. Now, the problem here is he's clearly gone out there. Some people can speculate it's for an agent. Who knows? It could be family. Who knows? It could be a woman. Who knows what it is? We need to wait to get the facts on why he told that club, eventually when he was found out, that he went to Spain. So I think from that point of view, we've also got to clarify, Hugh, not all players have to be tarred with this. There are lots and lots of very decent players all over the country in the Premiership who are abiding by the laws. It's a small minority, Hugh, who either through their own stupidity or, in his case, just a blatant disregard for the rules, has put us all once again behind the eight ball, not only with the government, but for a lot of futures in football, Hugh.
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. I was actually surprised that football has just got a yellow card, because from day one of this coronavirus, it's been a shambles, an absolute shambles, from shambles stretching from reserve games to Auchenhowie, through friendlies, through pubs in Aberdeen, through flights to Malaga. It's been an absolute shambles. Now, this has been laid at the door of a Scottish government who's shown itself not overly keen on Scottish football. It doesn't intervene positively in Scottish football, I would say. It doesn't, it keeps an arm's length. Certainly things about giving Scottish football money or support in certain areas. And it also lands in the door of a First Minister who had to bin a friend and her Chief Medical Officer for driving to Fife. I think that decision was absolutely correct, fundamentally correct. I back that decision to the hill. But she's done that, and now she's faced with decisions where there's repeated breaches of this protocol. When you're talking about hanging by a thread, Peter, you're not exaggerating. And it opens up so many things. It opens up the future of Scottish football, the future of those who work in Scottish football and on its periphery. This really is last chance saloon.
Now, let me first of all let you hear from Neil Lennon, then I want to get your thoughts, guys, on obviously the reaction to what Neil Lennon had to say. Here he is talking first of all about the news, and this is his first question that was put to him today.
We were absolutely livid, appalled. The club have been at the forefront of maintaining good practice, the protocols all in place, trying to get the game up and running, and we have been bitterly and sorely let down by the selfish actions of one individual.
Roughie?
Yeah, exactly what I said. I think the clubs have all done all they can, but we know in football that there is somebody somewhere who's going to let somebody down. It's just part and parcel of football. Doesn't matter whether it's in Scotland, England, or anywhere else. There's always somebody, who's not going to adhere to the rules, and this is what this guy has done. And as Neil said, that he'll wait and discuss everything and then decide what they're going to do with him. But I think he's also looking at the bigger picture of obviously no 2 games behind, no warm-up, completely no warm-up for a massive year of European football, and get into a game and not up running in full speed. That must be a worry for them as well. So the guy has brought all these things up onto the club, and he will suffer the consequences.
Yeah, I'm going to let you see a few statements. I'll read them out on the programme. But just news in, obviously Neil Lennon was looking at the prospect of 7 days now for Celtic with no games in the SPFL. But what about the European game? Well, the news just in, Celtic's first round Champions League qualifier against KR Reykjavik is on after UEFA gave their blessing for the match to kick off at Celtic Park at 7:45 next Tuesday. Well, that is indeed a bonus for the Celtic fans to see that, because UEFA have been taking a hard line on this through the pandemic, but that game is on. So Celtic 7:45 next Tuesday does indeed go ahead. I'm going to read out a number of comments from so many of you who want to put your point across. I'll try and get through as many as possible on this one. Before I read out the statements, let me ask you this. Tam McManus mentioned that the 8 players that were involved from Aberdeen, he felt so strongly that he thought that Aberdeen should have been deducted points because of the conduct of their players. That's the punishment he was calling for. Hugh, should Celtic have been deducted points or made to play with a reserve side because of the players that would have had to have?
Yeah, well, I think obviously yes, I agree in principle. The short answer is yes, I agree in principle with the forfeiture of points, because I think the guilty should be punished, and I think people who have been punished now, like St Johnstone and St Mirren, who through no fault of their own, and their supporters who are paying money for season tickets, for virtual season tickets, they have been inconvenienced and deprived of a game through no fault of their own. So I'm very strong in the forfeiture thing. I think it would be impossible to bring it in retrospectively, Peter, but this might have been something that should have been discussed at the beginning of the season. As is, which is the big one hanging over Scottish football at the moment, and nobody's talking about it, is what happens if the league gets called. There is no protocol in place for that either.
Yeah, absolutely. If she and of course that's the double whammy. She could shut it down for a period as well, which of course has implications not only for the clubs but everything. As I emphasise time and time again, this is not just about players on the park. This is about clubs, the infrastructure, the people who actually make a living out of football. I'm not talking just about the media. There is a whole raft of businesses that make a profit from operating around the structure of football. And of course, let's not forget, survival in Scottish football very much relies on supporters coming through the turnstiles. And the longer that goes on, the more pain we are seeing right now from clubs who can only rely on the deal from Sky, and it's sometimes the generosity of multi-millionaires, and that won't go on forever. Let's hear what Celtic released a statement first and foremost. When they were caught out with this yesterday, Celtic unreservedly condemns and apologises for the behaviour of the player, Bolly and goalie, in travelling to Spain without informing the club and in failing to observe quarantine restrictions. It's difficult to imagine a more irresponsible action, and we find it beyond explanation. The club will take immediate action through our own disciplinary procedures. Celtic are in touch with every SPFL club and with all relevant authorities to apologise for that. One of our employees has created additional difficulty. All of our staff have been tested twice for COVID-19 since this incident, and all, including the player in question, have tested negative. While this comes as a relief to all concerned, it in no way diminishes the seriousness or stupidity of the player's actions. Well, do you think he's going to survive this one, Darren?
I think it'll be hard to. It'll be hard for him to survive this, Peter. Yeah, I do. Now, whether he'll be sacked, whether he'll just be put on the transfer list, because you never know. And I think you're right at the start, and we have to make this point, Peter, that there's thousands of players, and there's probably maybe 8 or 9 players, 10 players that have just messed about with the rules and just thought there's no rules, I can do what I want. So we can't tarnish everyone with the same brush, because, as you said, most of the players have adhered to everything that they've been told by, well, we'll hear Neil Lennon saying they're a couple of days off. We've never heard anything else from any of the other Celtic players. So I think he'll be put up for sale, and I don't think he'll play for Celtic again.
Okay, this is what Bolingoli had to say as an apology for his actions. I have made a huge mistake. I want to apologise to my manager, my teammates, the supporters, everyone at Celtic and so many others for letting them down so badly. I am guilty of a major error of judgment. I know what I did was wrong and I know what I must now deal with the consequences. Roughie, the consequences will come in 7 days when the chairman, the chief executive and the manager and the board membership obviously will discuss it at great length and look at their legal situation here. He'll find out his fate 7 days from now.
Yeah, as I said, there'll be a legal stance will be as well. Celtic will be checking what they can do, what they can't do, what the limits are of what he's done. And I think I'd like Darren, you just put him on the transfer list and you get him out the road. He's not exactly a big player. He hasn't established himself at all. So, no, I think it's on the transfer list and see you later, mate.
Yeah, I wonder if it's even going to be on the transfer list. I think it's a gross misconduct charge here. It's a massive breach of the rules on 3 counts for me. And I think they'll look at it. This is my personal opinion. I think they'll look at it and sack him. I don't know if the implications of that transfer involves you trying to get money out of another club to take someone, Hugh. I think that's a different set of circumstances.
There'll be, I mean, for financial reasons, it'll be a big hit. I mean, they paid what, $3 million for him, you know, and they haven't got a penny really out of that. The thing about Bolingoli, you know, as a personal case, I think interesting. The thing about Bolingoli is quite specific. He had one foot outside the door anyway. There's nobody was going to invest millions on Bolingoli's future at Celtic Park. It looked very, very ropey, to say the least. This merely exacerbates that perception and that reality. He's gone, Peter, one way or the other. That's a fact. The more interesting thing I think for me is when you take the personality out of it, is what is Scottish football? What were they saying to the government today? Because this is really now, we're reaching a crisis. I mean, we're actually beyond crisis. We're at a stage now, and it's not just a Celtic problem, you know, Celtic being 2 games behind and, you know, having to go into Europe, and that is a huge problem for an individual club. We're reaching a problem now where the season is already packed. There's very little room for leeway. So everything must run as smoothly as possible to get through this fixture list. And already in August, we're behind schedule. And the other impact as well, whenever he's shouting and bawling about why don't we have a sponsor, we have one sponsor in the shape of £125 million from Sky Television, which we all like to give, you know, our fellow compares the odd wee kick and bounce now. They've put £125 million into Scottish football. And a guy in London will be told this afternoon, he'll be sitting in a meeting saying, by the way, we're not getting that Scottish game from Paisley tomorrow night. We're going to change that. Why is that? Because the COVID thing is going up in the air again.
Yeah, and on that point, Hugh,
hugely damaging, Peter. Hugely damaging.
Yeah, Hugh Scott agrees with you, and he says, yes, Peter, he says, that's the second live Sky game postponed. Great start to the new deal. And that is another problem. Our image is tarnished. It doesn't matter if it's individuals. Our image in Scottish football is quite simply a laughing stock. 5 months, I would suggest 5 months of madness compounded here. This isn't even, believe me, this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. There's more to come because we continually shoot ourselves in the foot non-stop, and this one is just compounding the misery of the last 4 to 5 months. So Hugh Scott says that there are so many. Thank you to the countless people. John Flanagan says, never mind the media, the fans pay their way as well. Don't forget that. Yeah, John, you're 100% correct. You know, the fans, for me, it's the most painful. You know, you'll have to look at the Aberdeen fans. This is a club who are hemorrhaging money, Roughie. This is a club who Dave Cormack's looking at and thinking, how are we going to survive? We need to get fans back in. So for the conduct of those players, I'm amazed that, you know, if only for the fact that there's 8 of them, I'm sure he would have sacked them.
Yeah, and again, it goes down to personnel. We often see decisions getting made, and some people in a squad and other people in the squad, because they're obviously higher profile and more worth to whatever club it is, they get away with it. So yeah, it is. It's just for both clubs. I said embarrassment at the beginning of the show. I just feel for a club like Celtic that would have rather it had been somebody else that this had fallen upon. They don't want to be making excuses for players or what's happening at the club or anything like that. They want to deal really 100% in football, and football for this season for them is a big season. So this is a hindrance, a massive hindrance for the club in such an important season.
Yeah, absolutely. The Ninth Legion on. I'm sorry for the noise you might be getting at the moment. I don't know if it's affecting the broadcast, but the Ninth Legion says Bolly will be sold. A Yeti incoming. It's a storm in a teacup. Believe me, you've so far off the market defies belief. This is not a storm in a teacup. This is a man who's complete disregard for the rules, and it could have affected not only Celtic but Kilmarnock players as well. To go on that field of play, knowing he'd been in Spain, one of the countries on the list, and could have affected everybody and infected everybody in that club as well, was gross misconduct. So it's not a storm in a teacup, and there's no point in trying to write it off like that. Here's what Neil Lennon had to say about the actions of Ball and goalie and thinking he could get away with that.
As far as I'm concerned, the club have been exemplary in the way they handle things around the training ground, around the stadium, and the amount of testing that we've done. Thankfully, everyone is negative. So we couldn't have done any more as a club to, maintain the standards that have been set. But this is a rogue who has basically gone off tangent and decided to do something very, very selfish.
Well, that's the key there, Darren. He must have actually just thought to himself, I can get away with this.
That's what's surprising, Peter. That's what we can't answer. The question that he can turn around and think, I'm going to get away with it. As I've just said, you walk around Glasgow, you go to Glasgow Airport, you go to Edinburgh Airport, every footballer's recognised, every Celtic, every Rangers player is recognised. How do you think you can get away to jump on a flight and then come back in again and not be recognised? It's just, it's beyond belief, and it's something that's hard to take in, that he can, especially when the manager has just said, don't be going abroad. I don't think he has to say that, don't be going abroad, because you've only got 2 days off. Nobody's going to jump on a flight anyway. So that's a strange one, as I said, and I'm not going to go. I've said that I think that could happen. It might not have happened, but to go to Spain for 1 day is just, I don't get it. I can't explain anything.
And the other thing as well, that after the Aberdeen carry on, Lenny's already went on record to say my players will be playing their football and going home and coming back and going home. So he's already put it on the record to everybody, this is the way that you have to behave. So he can't say, I didn't understand the rules here. So, everything that falls on him is his own fault.
Do you think there is an onus on Celtic, Hugh, to come out and say, this is what he said, why he went? Everybody wants to know why.
Is there an onus? That's a difficult one. I think my bias would be it would be advantageous, for the guy himself if he had a reason. But Peter, that's so far from the point. I think the only way this guy could have been in any way, and even then, but in any way sympathetic to why he went, would be, for example, if he was visiting a sick relative. But even that, all of us have been in this coronavirus. Every single one of us has been adhering to rules that meant we couldn't see sick relatives. We couldn't go to the funerals of relatives or the funerals of good friends. We couldn't see, in certain cases, grandchildren for 3 months physically. So I honestly don't think, Peter, there is, I'm looking at my imagination at the moment and coming into it, I don't think there is any excuse. Normally the excuse would be, there's family reasons, there was severe personal, my mother was dying in a hospice somewhere. Even that's not a reason under these circumstances now, Peter. It's just not. There is no reason, no justifiable reason for doing this. That is a bold but absolutely valid statement.
Yeah, even if it was a relative, Hugh, I can
No.
hear people shouting at us right now, suggesting, "Wait a minute, there's probably somebody watching this show right now saying, I had to learn of my mum, my dad, my cousin, my aunt, my uncle, whatever,
Absolutely.
brother, sister dying, and I couldn't
Absolutely.
get near them."
Yeah.
That wouldn't cut anything with me on it. I have no sympathy for him whatsoever on that predicament. We have all witnessed some tragic stories on the news on a daily basis with regards to that. Rod Petrie, the SFA president, made this statement as well regarding the events of the last 24 hours because it's been a damage limitation. We've acted swiftly and decisively in addressing the latest concerns raised by the Minister on behalf of the Scottish Government. While the decision to postpone the Games is deeply regrettable, nevertheless, in the circumstances, unavoidable and uncontestable. I must apologise if you're hearing noise from somebody's microphone. I'll try again. The JRG members were astounded to learn of the recklessness demonstrated by volleyballing goalie in his breach of government health guidance and football protocols. We echo the sentiments of Celtic in their condemnatory statement and commend the club's swiftness in opening an investigation. That this comes on the back of 8 Aberdeen players showing similar disregard for public health is disrespectful, not just to every teammate, player and colleague, but also to every fan in this country. Clubs and players are in no doubt. There is no more margin for error and no more scope for breaches. Players must heed the warning of the First Minister that this is indeed a yellow card moment for Scottish football. And of course, there are other statements, and I won't go into them because we want to try and move on again to get the thoughts of other people on this. Most of the stuff that's coming through here. So thanks to the countless people on Facebook and YouTube who are putting across some very good points. I'll try and read them out. Some of them you don't like, some of them you do, but a lot of people sticking to the main point of this story as it develops. Don't worry, we're not going to read out anything which I call whataboutery in this campaign, which is somebody who tries to deflect away from the issue by saying, what about something else? And try and avoid all of the comments that you hear that are slightly distasteful. These people have no grasp on reality. Okay, on from that, the games. Celtic look forward to KR Reykjavik. The 2 games are off for them. We can look forward to football, but the Rangers manager Steven Gerrard was obviously keen to talk about his team, the way they've started the season. But first and foremost, today at the press conference, he offered his own thoughts, saying, the last thing everybody wants is for the whole game to suffer because of these actions.
The severity of the chat, how important it is that everyone behaves in the right way. And it is a concern and it is a worry because if mistakes continue to happen, there's no doubt about it that the football season will be cancelled. And that's not what I want or what anyone wants at Rangers or I assume throughout Scottish football.
Tell you the flip side of this, Darren, suddenly Rangers have got a right good chance of opening up a considerable lead early on.
Yeah, Stephen was great there, Peter. He wasn't gloating saying, look what's happened to Celtic and that, because he knows it's going to affect our football, it's going to affect our league. And they've started really well. And he'll be hoping that this isn't going to affect anything because, as I say, they've started well. They just need to concern themselves. They've obviously, Stephen's got the Morelos thing. He's got to deal with most days, but he seems to be dealing with it. He scored 2 goals at the weekend. He'll be delighted with that. He's brought new signings in. So he was right in what everything he said there, but they'll just be concentrating on how well they've started and obviously just maintaining it.
Yeah, the other side issue here, I think, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that the window will close with Morelos in play still as a Rangers player, because the twists and turns in Scottish football and players, it can take one little twist that nobody expects. But it looks as if Lille, Hugh, might be looking elsewhere, which would suggest that, okay, maybe Morelos will be with us for longer.
Well, the word in the trade is that the Lille thing has cooled dramatically, and yes, they're looking at other targets. Sorry, but I think both of us have dealt in transfer stories for many years now, Peter. I know that can change particularly if the other targets move out of, out of range. I think it's fair to say that Morelos is not now a priority for Lille. That is certainly the soundings I'm getting. But remember, there's many other clubs out there. The transfer window has got many a week to run. It's going to run into October, Peter. There'll be dominoes falling at various other places, and that'll impact on Alfredo Morelos' future. But at the moment, I think at the moment Lille he wouldn't be. At one point we thought he might be moving to Lille within days. I don't think that's on the horizon now.
Yeah, and the manager, Steven Gerrard, says his player is fully focused on life at Ibrox at the moment.
He's a Rangers player. I think you could see that in his performance. The other day, he was really, really strong from the first minute to the last. He's a big player for us. He's very important. Nothing's changed in terms of his situation, so he'll be in the squad for tomorrow's game, and we move forward. It's only normal that players' heads turn when there's so much noise in the outside in terms of the media. When players know that there's other teams chasing them, big teams. I think it's pretty normal. So we understand it and we respect the situation that Alfredo's in. But the important thing and the vital thing is he respects the supporters here at Rangers. He respects the club and continues to keep doing his job in the right way.
Well, if he continues in the right way, Roughie, after 2 goals and an assist from the last match, this is a real chance for him to fire in the goals and get Rangers up ahead of steam. I think they could be, let's look at it now, 8 points clear before we get to the next set of fixtures that Celtic are allowed to play.
Yeah, that's possible. And Hibs as well. Anybody who's up there will see this as an advantage they've got over the next couple of games, because we all know it's better having the points than not having them. So they'll have to deal with that, But as far as the Rangers striker's concerned, I think Steven Gerrard's putting on a brave face of it now. Okay, he scored a couple of goals at the weekend. His head has been turned, and Steven Gerrard's come out and said it has been. It can't just change overnight because he scores 2 goals. I still think if this transfer falls flat in his face, he's still got a problem. Because if he's still there, this is a guy, has already admitted his head's been turned, and if he doesn't get the move that he wants, I think you could have an exorcism moment where his head will completely spin off. Because he wants out of that club. He wants to go to a bigger club. And if he's got to wait another year, Rangers have got a problem.
Listen, I've been on shows with you, Peter. How long have I been on a show with you? Every week, week out since we've got, and we always come off the show and we say, what's the line? The line today is Alfred Morelos' head is going to spin off. Says Roughie.
I mean, honestly, I was thinking to myself, I kid you not, I got up this morning and I thought to myself, this is going to be one of those days where I am not going to smile on the show, because it's such a serious subject. But you've taken me there, Roughie, again, because the only thing I've got in my head now is Alfredo Morelos levitating above the bed because he doesn't get his move. It's going mental.
I think you get my drift. And if Steven Gerrard thinks if that guy doesn't get a move, that everything's going to be rosy in the garden, I think he's got a problem.
Roughie, God Almighty! Now I know why. Now I know why you have to keep us. You have to keep Roughie with us, because he's completely and utterly unhinged. I love him. Anyway, apart from anything else, Alfredo Morelos, as Hugh says, and Roughie highlighted there, in Exorcist Storm. I can see it now. Anyway. Listen, Rangers against St Johnstone is the game. That game's on. I'm looking at it. Motherwell, Livingston, Rangers, St Johnstone, Ross County, Kilmarnock. I mean, apart from Dundee United, Hibs tonight, Darren, which is on Sky, I'm not sure they'll take a game tomorrow, because it's not an easy operation suddenly taking the whole outside broadcast unit and starting to move from one place to the other. It's a lot of preparation ahead of time. The whole team behind the Sky, the front of house, it takes a lot of preparation.
I think they were trying to do that on Saturday, Peter, were they not? Were they not trying
Yeah,
to
they
take it to
were.
Motherwell?
Yeah,
And
but
I
it
think,
didn't.
the problem was they were wanting to make it a 12:30 kick-off.
Yeah.
I think that was a bit of an issue. So they'll try everything they can because, as Hugh said, they've paid vast amounts of money. They must look forward to, especially this season and what's at stake. I think they'll try and do everything they can to try and take a game in, but whether it's possible or not, good game tonight. Rangers tomorrow night, as you said, Peter. They'll be looking to try and get points ahead of Celtic. Kind of going back to Celtic, they don't want to get too far behind, but I think missing the games to go into the Champions League qualifier will be a bigger hurt for them because they're not up to. They've got another 2 games to go into that game, match sharpness. So I think that'll affect them. But there's good games tomorrow. But I think Sky could, if it's possible, go and take another game in. The Ross County Kilmarnock game could be a good game, but it's obviously going to be up north.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So Rangers against St Johnstone, Motherwell against Livingston, Ross County against Kilmarnock. The burning story, as we've been talking about, is the conduct of volleyball and goalie. This is ongoing. Whether Celtic relay to us the exact detail of why volleyball and goalie decided to leave the country and go to Spain, a country that is on Britain's list of countries that if you come back from it, you have to go into 14 days of quarantine. Why did he think he was going to get away with it? What reason did he go out there for? We do not know that as yet. We've had the obligatory apology, which, again, you only have to look at the last 4 days, doesn't cut any ice with anyone. There's a long way to go in this title race, but that's 2 games that Celtic won't be playing in the Premiership, and the next match they have has been confirmed by UEFA is against KR Reykjavik on Tuesday, and that one on the 18th of August will be at Celtic Park, 7:45 kickoff. So with that in mind, I look at the whole situation, and what about the game tomorrow for St Mirren and their perspective on this? St Mirren's Tony Fitzpatrick had this to say in releasing a statement regarding not being able to play tomorrow because other clubs suffer from this, and he's just released a statement saying we've learned at first hand within our club the importance of testing regime and 100% adherence to all social distancing and hygiene protocols. It is bitterly disappointing that our game tomorrow has been postponed, but it underlines the hugely damaging consequences of even one player disregarding the new rules. We absolutely support the stance of the SFA and the SPFL in this matter. These necessary steps are there to protect our game, our players, and the very future of every single club in the country. The stakes could not be higher, and that is why, as a club, we will be constantly reinforcing the need for personal responsibility and vigilance. The Scottish Games simply cannot afford to shoot itself in the foot. And again, this highlights, from Tony Fitzpatrick's statement there on behalf of St Mirren, Hugh MacDonald, that other clubs suffer from this as well. I wonder what the implications are for the Sky money on that initial one,
exactly.
or if it's just going to be distributed out as a block at the end of your league position.
Probably it's gone because they're not going to pay them for a match they didn't. I would imagine that would be that's going the way of all flesh. I mean, I really, there's so many elements to this story, and I think the St Johnstone one, if we can call it that, both inconvenience massively, their supporters inconvenience massively, but the actions of unthinking football players is a scandal. It's a scandal. I mean, one of our viewers was talking about the importance of the fans, and I cannot back that up anymore. There'll be St Mirren fans who will have built their whole day tomorrow around this game, whether it be getting home early from work or getting whatever so we can get back to watch a game on television. There'll be some Mirren fans we know for a fact who have paid for season tickets as well to be able to watch live streams of games. They've put their hard-earned dosh up front, and one guy swanning off to Spain for a day has completely inconvenienced the people who are the main funders of Scottish football. That's the fans. The fans are the biggest funders. Sky come a close second, I would say, and they've been inconvenienced too. It's just, I mean, Tony, the only thing I would disagree with Tony is Tony's talking about, the danger is that we shoot ourselves in the foot. One foot's already been shot off, and the other foot is in the crosshairs. I mean, we're getting right to the edge of the abyss on this, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. The key point here, I think this morning, Stephen Robinson, the Motherwell manager, mentioned that, Darren, again, we're in the last chance saloon. We've only got one more life left. If anybody breaks the rules again, we're goosed. It'll shut down. But again, as Stephen Robinson pointed out this morning, why should all the clubs suffer? And that is the next big call from Nicola Sturgeon. If you shut down Scottish football because of another misdemeanour from a player, suddenly Scottish football is in serious financial danger with the broadcasters, and Scottish football is in serious financial danger with lots of other industry around it that suddenly is in jeopardy of folding. That's how huge this is. If it's a call from the Scottish government, it's a huge one because it could kill off a lot of the industry.
100%, Peter. I think it will kill a lot of clubs, even in the Premiership. It will kill a lot of clubs. I mean, the managers will be sitting down with the players. This one will be a massive, huge wake-up call for all the players. Now, whether someone's done something between over the weekend, we don't know whether it'll come out. I hope not. I genuinely hope not. But I think this will be a massive wake-up call to the players, knowing that their livelihoods. I mean, listen, Peter, I've always only known football, and those boys, a lot of the boys, only know football. Now, they could be out of job, and a lot of clubs could be out the game, players out jobs, and it's just a huge disaster. But I honestly hope that all the players sit down and think, right, that this isn't fun now. This is serious stuff, real serious. But they should have known it was serious stuff when people were dying. So it shouldn't be a surprise to them that a boy's going to Spain and this is a nightmare. No, people have been dying with this, Peter. Not because a guy's going to Spain, but for a game, the boys really need to take heed now and just get wise.
Yeah, I would emphasise, and I always like to try on this programme to offer a sense of balance on this. The majority, and I am emphasising this, the majority of footballers and the people in football are sensible. There will always be an element in every business, in every walk of life, where someone thinks they are beyond the rules. They can do what they want, whether that's through their own financial status or their political status. I mean, let's not forget that this whole thing, over the course of the last 5 months, we have witnessed one of the top advisors to the government, come up with a story that he drove 30 miles to test out his eyesight. We've had a number of issues. You look to tennis, Novak Djokovic putting on a tournament that again was fraught with danger, and mistakes were made. It's not just about football. People make decisions because they think, either through stupidity or they don't think hard enough about it. But there are lots of other people who do show great concern and who deserve the credit for following the rules, and they've been doing that. When you get this ugly side, sometimes the whole of the game can be tarnished. On the field of play, the good news is we are going to get to see a game tonight. I think it's a 6 o'clock kickoff, which Hibs against Dundee United up there at Tannadice. Two of the clubs that Darren played for. How lucky is that for us to get Darren on today? Roughie, I don't think you played for Dundee United. Did they ever come in for you, Roughie, Dundee United?
No, well, Jim McLean was there. No, I don't think that was ever going to happen. I don't think I would have passed his tick box at all.
No, absolutely. The first minute you walked in there with Miss Great Britain or Miss Scotland, you'd have been on a fine and in 2 weeks of quarantine. Marciano, McGinn, Porteous, Hanlon, Doig, Boyle, Gogic, Newell, Horgan, Doidge and Nisbet is the starting 11. The substitutes for Hibs in this game, Dabrowski, Gray, McGregor, Stevenson, Sterling, Hallberg, Murray, Allen and Gullen. Gogic, they're talking about him maybe getting a cap for Cyprus, Darren, such as his flying start to the season with the Hibbies.
Yeah, well, when you're up the top of the league, Peter, he's always been a nice footballer. I've watched him a couple of times at Hamilton. Keeps the ball well, sometimes plays in a back three, plays the middle one, he's comfortable taking the ball. And listen, when your team's top of the league and maybe the country's noticed that there's a chance he can play for us, there's always the chance. But I'm looking forward to the game tonight. I think we said on it a few weeks ago, my first goal for Dundee United was against Hibs, and my first goal for Hibs was against Dundee United. So it's a good one to watch tonight. I think both teams will be very confident. I think Hibs offer probably more a threat if Shanklands isn't playing. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, really looking forward to it, Roughie. What was your prediction, Roughie? Have you put in your predictions, Roughie, so far?
No, I don't think we have for tonight. But I'm going to go for Hibs. I think, as Darren said there, I think the firepower is there for everybody to see. I thought they were very good. Tam was telling us even midfield-wise they were pretty strong. So I'm going to go with them just to edge it. I'm going to go for Hibs for a 2-1 win on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to say this, Roughie, and I wasn't just copying you. I've written down 2-1 to Hibs as well. So I'm with you on that one. What do you think, Hugh?
Well, I'm going to put the absolute mockers in Hibs and go along with you. I think they've made a really impressive start to the season. I'm very interested in watching this game, Peter. And isn't it amazing that it's like 55 minutes or whatever into the show, and we're actually talking about football now. It's been a long summer for us, and we thought we'd get into the bones of the football very quickly. And there's so much going on in the football as well. I mean, it's not as if we do this stuff to avoid what's going on, because Dundee United and Hibs tonight is a really good story. You've got a manager you want to sit down and watch. I certainly want to watch Dundee United under Mickey Mellon to see, what he's about, what he thinks, what his principles are, what he thinks important. I think it's already been shown he's wanting a lot of organisation, certainly defensively. I want to watch a Hibs team that scored 4 at Livingston the weekend, where they've got a young guy. The guy we were talking about goalie today, and I make no apologies for it, Peter, because that by far is the big story. But we could surely be forgiven if we were previewing this match tonight and we're talking about Nisbet for 50 minutes. We've got this young kid that's come in, hit the ground running, looks exciting, has changed the whole aspect of Hibs fans. So it's a game that's got a lot in it, a lot of interesting points, and a game I'm looking forward to. But as I said at the top of this, I think a narrow win for Hibs.
Yeah, okay. You're going for a narrow win for Hibs. I loved your point, Hugh, that we always like to talk about football 55 minutes into the show. As Roughie and I know, it's in the terms of Darren's contract that he hates talking about anything other than football. But boy, have we fair leathered him back into shape. So let's get your prediction. It better not be 2-2 to try and stay on side with your mates.
No, it's not going to be 2-2. I think it'll be 1-1. I do.
Oh dear.
I just think Paradise. Listen, Peter. I fancy, as I just said, I fancy Hibs. They look as though they're going well. They're scoring goals. I've obviously played there, but Tannadice can be a hard place to go, and I think Mickey Mellon will have them up for it, and that's why I seriously think it'll be a draw.
Yeah, there'll be no atmosphere. It'll be just like a training game. I mean, honestly, I've been to 2 or 3 games already, and I don't know how anybody can be affected by anything. The great thing about it, I think, which is great, is the Dundee United players will be able to hear Mickey Mellon, because I have to say I laughed heartily at some of his comments from trackside. It was great to hear the manager, Darren, using, of course, as usual, everybody uses industrial language. language. But it was great hearing them. It was fun. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Archie Knox when I worked for Sky Sports. He used to sit me in behind the dugout at Pittodrie, and Archie Knox lacerated the players. Craig Brown was Mr. Nicey Roughie, and there was Archie absolutely battering them. One poor touch, and he was all over them like a rash.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we probably missed in the manager scenario. If John Lambie was still available, I'm sure that would be a fantastic listen as well to John in the sidelines if it was really, really quiet. It would be brilliant.
Okay, just before we go, guys, Kevin Robertson says he has to go Bolingoli and go now. Abdul Summer says 14 days isolation. What's the difference between him and us? I think that kind of sums it up. I've got to say, just well done to Manchester United. They are into the semi-final of the Europa League. They're waiting now for the winners of the match, which is Wolves against Sevilla, which is going to be an interesting one for them. So, again, English clubs in and thereabouts at the latter stages of European tournaments, I think is going to be a regular occurrence. But United with a chance to get to the Europa League final as well. So we've got all the scores on that. Just to recap from the top of the programme, once again, we heard from Neil Lennon talking about the fact that he was livid. The club are embarrassed by the conduct of Bolingoli, and he cleared up today at the press conference that basically everybody was well aware after the Hamilton game, couple of days off, don't go outside the country. They were well aware of it. Bolingoli somehow decided it was okay to nip out to Spain. For what reason, we do not know as yet. And then come back in on the Tuesday. He did not inform the club. He was found out. And when it became known to Celtic Football Club, they acted swiftly on this when he's in isolation. But that was after the biggest problem for me, Hugh, was after the deception of coming back into the country. He played in a game against Kilmarnock.
Yeah, and one statement that we didn't have time for today is Alec Dyer's statement, Peter, which was the absolute acme. If you ever want to look up dignity and fair-mindedness in the dictionary, Alec Dyer's statement is there. He was much more amenable than I would ever been, much more equable than I would ever been. He's just saying, take it, we'll move on, we blah de blah de blah. But he knows that his players, his club, and himself were all put in danger by the reckless actions of an individual. It really is unconscionable.
Yeah, and I think the repercussions of this, and remember, Roughie, the First Minister says, from now, not people, scraping back and trying to catch other people that have done it over the last couple of weeks. There might be the odd story of somebody else who's been caught out. But the First Minister and the Chief Medical Officer said, from now onwards, one more strike and you're out.
Yeah, I would like to think that every club in Scotland would have had their players in a dressing room somewhere. Although they all should have had the message, I think the message will be put out there again to every individual and every club. This is the importance of their actions over the next 2 or 3 months, and let's hope it gets through.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, will you be watching the game tonight?
Yes, yeah, I'm just going to have my dinner and then sit down and watch it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, absolutely. And how is the flat in Spain there? It looks as if it's hotting up. Open the windows. I can assure you, he's at home, he's safe. It's been one heck of a day. My sympathies, of course, certainly not with the player. I have possibly the last word on this one. I don't know if anybody wants to counter it, but I think we all look at the actions of Bolingoli. My personal opinion, having witnessed what Neil Lennon had to say today, is that I think Bolingoli in 7 days from now will not be a Celtic player. I think the club will look at the 2 or 3 actions that he's taken and view that as gross misconduct. And I think it could be the end of Bolingoli as a Celtic player, whether that's in a transfer or in a sacking for gross misconduct. Only time will tell. We'll have to wait to see what Celtic say on that. But as we say on this programme, and we have countlessly said, over the last 5 months, you know. Stay safe, follow the rules, wash your hands, keep a safe distance between you and any person that you are with. We always want you to try and abide by the rules. Fingers crossed we all do as well. Thank you very much to everyone who commented on our Facebook. You can like, share and follow us. The figures are in. We're Scotland's #1 football show. It's not a jingle. It's not something to try and put the perception out there. The thousands of people who are watching the programme is absolutely magnificent. Thank you. On the digital platform on Facebook and on YouTube as well. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, it's absolutely free. It won't cost you a penny. From Alan Rough, Hugh MacDonald, Darren Jackson and myself, Peter Martin. Thanks for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed.